Hi, I'm Louis Sloan, student number s4206751, and in today's video I will be discussing my fashion editorial photography project entitled A Venture Beyond Normality. So, to do with the requirements of this module, we were challenged to conceptualise and produce a minimum of 8 images in either an editorial or advertising style, based on the theme of On the Road, inspired by the Jack Kerouac book. After doing my own research and watching the cinematic adaptation of On the Road, my key takeaways were how the protagonists in On the Road were using written language to express themselves freely and to express their inner desires outwardly. To me, this linked to the expressionist art movement, which was adopted by many to use abstraction as a medium to express themselves freely without the constraints of form. In my photography, I would like to showcase how the repressed desires of many can be visually manifested into something beautifully liberating. Through styling and photo editing techniques, I desire to take the viewer on a journey from something normal and then venture beyond that in an amalgamation of key ideas within On the Road, such as desire, movement, and energy. Through the use of blur, I would like to visually mimic the brush strokes used in the expressionist art pieces, and therefore I wanted to go down the route of fashion editorial rather than advertising, as my interpretation of the theme is highly expressionistic and I was really drawn towards the editorial realm. So, as you can see, this is my mood board for the project. I feel that I have visually refined my idea while still maintaining an emphasis on energy, movement, and desire. And I wanted to tie in black and white photography with colour, as I feel that it would progress the narrative in a more strange and surrealist way. The publication which I chose to base my work around was Another Magazine. It is a biannual fashion magazine which blends high fashion, art, and photography together. It is published by Days Group and features key themes of creative expression, freedom, and community, which usually embodies a provocative or political energy. Within the digital edition of Another Magazine, I really admired how the subsections are dedicated to different aspects of fashion and beauty, art and photography, design and living, and Another Man. And personally, for this project, I was most intrigued by the photography and art section, as I feel that it would link to the expressionist brushstroke idea which I would create with blur. Within the magazine, the typeface featured is simple and easy to read, even from the earliest issues of the magazine. The layout of the spreads have varied. Some cover the page entirely in full bleed and feature overlapping text, whereas some pages make use of white space frequently. I personally admire the diversity amongst each issue. It is something that I would love to experiment with in my project, as it arguably makes the viewer more anticipated and engaged with the visual imagery to see what layout comes next. The artist which heavily inspired my project was Elizaveta Borodina. She is a Moscow-born fashion photographer, and her work is uniquely recognized for its surreal features of movement and emotion, where the real world and fantasy are frequently blurred as one. I desire to emulate the creative freedom which is possessed in her work through vivid colours and dynamic compositions. Her work is relevant to my project in terms of essence too, as what captivated me the most in On the Road was the idea of repressed freedom coming into fruition, which is what Borodina's work expresses to me. Borodina has established herself to be a highly successful and influential figure amongst the fashion photography community, with her work featured amongst many well-known fashion publications such as Vogue US, Vogue Italia, Vogue China, Dazed, and many others. From all the mesmerising works in her portfolio, the image which inspired me most was the one for 16 Journal displayed on screen now. The composition of this piece is simple yet striking. It showcases a model against a plain black background with bright vivid colours consuming her. To me, the colours seem very overwhelming, as if they are following her, and I love the physical intertwine of art and photography displayed amongst this image. It is heightened to the extreme, and within my work, I desire to incorporate something similar to this piece, featuring elements of movement and colour interweaved with the human world to showcase the power of art and its involvement with human expression. For the location of my shoot, I was originally planning to set it in the National Portrait Gallery. However, due to security strictness and lighting issues, I decided to shoot in the Victoria and Albert Museum, as this location has lots of different intricacies, both outside and inside the building. This location really does encapsulate and embody such a strong energetic essence. And when researching more into this space, this image of the grand walls and staircases filled with paintings really stood out to me. I felt that the intricate and ethereal elements would work beautifully alongside the ornate garments which Zach had so kindly provided for the shoot. From looking at this image, I decided to slightly alter my shoot, as I absolutely love the colours and the composition of these archways and staircases. I was originally going to start the shoot outside and then end the shoot outside to show how the art will follow the individual wherever they go now. However, I thought it was more fitting to end the shoot amongst this room, as it's just so breathtaking and mesmerising, and I feel it would beautifully work with the garments, and I could still capture the Elisaveta Porridina image amongst this location. I additionally thought that the background would heighten the compositional element of it. In terms of modelling, I feel that it would narratively make sense to use just one model to show how the power of art, physically through styling and symbolically through emotion, affects an individual. The model who I decided to work with was the makeup artist and my good friend Zachariah. I really wanted to use someone who is comfortable in front of a camera and someone who I personally have an amazing connection with, as I know that this will translate through the imagery. I feel that Zach's energy and passion really encapsulate some aspects of On the Road, and I have collaborated with Zach before in university, so I was really excited to work with him again. Additionally, Zach himself collects a vast variety of vintage and archival runway pieces, which he was so kind enough to let me use amongst the styling process. After showing me his collection, I decided to choose the sultry green silk shirt from Gucci by Tom Ford, Fall Winter 1995 Look 1, the beautiful and exuberant multicoloured pattern trousers from Gucci by Tom Ford, Fall Winter 1999, and a Manfred Terry Mugler purple trench coat circa 1984 and 1986. I feel that the trousers especially kind of link to the brushstroke element of the expressionist art movement themselves, and the green shirt paired nicely amongst that. When it came to the trench coat, I felt that it would work best as the formal look within the black and white, so unfortunately I was unable to showcase the purple colour narratively. I don't know how it would intertwine. I could have used it in some sections, however I decided to stay true to just black and white or just colour, as I felt that it would work the best visually for a viewer. However, to critique my own work, I would have absolutely loved to showcase the vibrancy and the colour, and Zach models it so beautifully as it's his signature, so it would have been lovely to utilise that to its full potential. However, on the whole, I am so blessed that I have access to these absolutely breathtaking garments, and as my editorial became sort of surreal amongst the editing process, these interesting and fabulous pieces of fashion history really did heighten the drama and intensity of my images, so I am so forever grateful. I carried out the shoot at the V&A Museum with Zach on Tuesday the 10th of December 2024. I took my images on a Nikon camera and constantly experimented with zooming in, lowering the aperture and standing closer to the model to create the desired effect of movement through the use of blur. I followed closely along to the shot list in order to create a successful narrative, and I took around 350 to 400 photos and then narrowed it down to further 20 for the actual options for my editorial. And as you can see, these are just some images. I did do some test shoots outside and with Zach wearing another suit option. However, I instantly decided to scrap these as they weren't as successful as my other images within my actual project. And as I had around 20 images and options, I decided to use more than 8 for my actual magazine, I instead decided to create 8 magazine spreads, so 16 pages in total, as I felt the portrayal of the narrative would come across more elevated for a viewer. Additionally, here is where I decided to create the first 4 spreads in black and white and then progress the next 4 into colour to narratively showcase venturing from something ordinary to something more exciting and liberating. This is an example of a raw and unedited shot from the shoot. It depicts Zach in his Terry Mugler purple trench coat against the museum background. I did use this in my project, however I edited it black and white to fit the narrative more suitably. However, I just wanted to show it off here as I was really proud of the desired effect of the background being blurry yet the subject being entirely in focus. That was not an edit, that was the original image. All I did was edit the saturation of this image. I will briefly touch upon editing for the title image which I produced. So the smaller red box is part of the image on the right, it's the same image. However, all I did was duplicate this, and on InDesign I flipped it and stretched it across, spanning over a whole spread, so 2 pages of the magazine. That's all I did to achieve this look. I thought it was very otherworldly, and it created from a wide to an ultra wide for the subject Zach, and he's very poised against his background and turning away from it. I thought it was intriguing compositionally, and I decided to use this as the title image to the spread as I really enjoy this image. This is the finalised layout for the publication, and as you can see, I tried to use as many different camera techniques as possible. I tried to use blur towards the end and have a variety of ultra wide, wide, mid shots and close-ups just to really establish a dynamic visual identity across these images. Overall, I am really pleased with the layout of my magazine spreads. I feel that I stayed true to the Another Magazine publication format. I didn't want to bombard the publication with a lot of text due to Another Magazine not necessarily doing that often. However, a critique of my work would be, I feel it could be a little more elevated if I did include more text in certain areas. However, overall, I'm very pleased with the outcome. So overall, I'm very pleased with my outcome. I feel that the images which I produced created a successful and engaging narrative. The publication, styling and digital techniques each beautifully enhanced this, and I thoroughly enjoyed the project. It was really exciting and challenging to be pushed outside of my comfort zone when it came to the professional industry standards of what a shoot entails. I am proud and thankful to feel my creative skills improving, as well as my confidence when it came to planning and directing the actual shoot. In future, I would absolutely love to create a series of images again, especially in black and white, as those images stood out to me most within this project. Thank you so much for listening and have a lovely day.